Have you ever noticed how some people hurt you and then act like nothing ever happened? Like you are the one overreacting, like you imagine the pain, like your feelings are too heavy to exist. Let me tell you something. This is not about you. This is about them. Their hurtful actions are about them, not you. It is so easy to take things personally, to believe that someone's cruel words, careless behavior, or thoughtless actions are a reflection of your worth. But the truth is, most of the time, the pain they cause has nothing to do with you. It is about their own struggles, their own insecurities, and their inability to handle their emotions in a healthy way. When someone lashes out, manipulates, or betrays, they are revealing the turmoil inside themselves, not a flaw in you. Understanding this distinction is critical to protecting your emotional well-being and maintaining your sense of self-worth. People hurt others for many reasons. Some are reacting to fear or jealousy. Some are projecting their pain onto someone else because they cannot cope with it internally. Others may have been raised in environments where hurting others was normalized, and they repeat patterns they never learned to break. When you realize that their actions are a mirror of their internal chaos, it becomes easier to detach yourself emotionally from their behavior. You begin to see that the way they treat you says far more about their character and limitations than it does about yours. It is also important to recognize that their hurtful actions are often a form of control. When someone attacks, belittles, or manipulates, they attempt to assert power over you. They want to influence how you feel, what you think, or how you act. By internalizing their behavior as a reflection of your value, you inadvertently give them that power. Once you understand that their actions are about them, you reclaim your power. You stop measuring yourself against their judgments and stop letting their instability dictate your emotions. You learn to hold your peace regardless of how they behave. Another aspect of this is understanding their inability to empathize. Many people who hurt others are not equipped to fully recognize the consequences of their actions on someone else. Their focus is inward, on their needs, their ego, or their fears. When they act in ways that cause pain, they often do so without even realizing the depth of the impact. This lack of awareness does not justify their behavior, but it reinforces the fact that it is not your fault. The responsibility for the pain they cause remains entirely with them. Recognizing that their actions are about them also helps in reframing your emotional response. Instead of spiraling into self-blame, shame, or confusion, you can approach the situation with clarity. You can acknowledge the hurt, validate your feelings, and take the necessary steps to protect yourself. You begin to respond rather than react, which changes the dynamic entirely. Your focus shifts from questioning your worth to understanding the other person's limitations, which is a liberating perspective. This understanding also encourages self-compassion. When someone hurts you, it is natural to feel anger, sadness, or disappointment. But knowing that their behavior is a reflection of their struggles allows you to treat yourself kindly. You can remind yourself that you deserve respect, love, and consideration regardless of how they behave. Their inability to provide that does not diminish your value. Their pain-filled actions are theirs to carry, not yours to internalize. Ultimately, this awareness is a form of emotional armor. It does not make the hurt disappear, nor does it excuse the behavior, but it allows you to navigate relationships with a sense of clarity and self-protection. By understanding that their hurtful actions are about them and not about you, you free yourself from unnecessary guilt, self-doubt, and emotional manipulation. You start to see the patterns, recognize the motives, and respond in ways that honor your well-being. You stop allowing someone else's inner chaos to dictate your peace, and you reclaim your sense of self in a profound way. Acting innocent is a way for people to avoid accountability, and this is a pattern that often leaves others feeling confused, frustrated, and even doubting their own perceptions. When someone hurts you and then pretends nothing happened, it is not a sign of remorse or vulnerability. It is a deliberate tactic to protect themselves from the consequences of their actions. By wearing the mask of innocence, they deflect responsibility, shift attention away from their wrongdoing, and create a false narrative that makes them appear blameless. This behavior can be subtle or overt, but its purpose is always the same: to avoid facing the truth about themselves. People who act innocent after causing harm are often uncomfortable with conflict and accountability. Confrontation exposes flaws, weaknesses, and mistakes, and for many, that is unbearable. They have a fear of judgment and criticism, so they use innocence as a shield. By presenting themselves as harmless, misunderstood, or even victimized, they manipulate the perception of those around them, making it seem as though the fault lies elsewhere. This allows them to continue their behavior without interruption, while those who were hurt are left struggling to process both the pain and the confusing optics of the situation. This tactic is not always malicious in the sense of conscious cruelty. Sometimes it stems from a deep-seated insecurity or lack of emotional maturity. Some individuals simply do not know how to admit wrongdoing or face the discomfort of accountability. The innocence they display is a defense mechanism, a way to preserve their ego and maintain control over their environment. Understanding this can help you detach emotionally from their behavior, because it becomes clear that their outward appearance of purity is not an accurate reflection of their intentions or character. It is a carefully constructed illusion. Acting innocent also serves as a way to manipulate perception and maintain power in relationships. When someone portrays themselves as blameless, they can influence how others respond, often eliciting guilt, confusion, or hesitation from those who were hurt. This tactic is particularly effective because it preys on empathy. Many people instinctively want to believe the best in others, to see them as well-intentioned, and to forgive when possible. When confronted with someone's feigned innocence, it is natural to question your own judgment and wonder if you overreacted. This is exactly what the person acting innocent wants. They want you to doubt yourself, so they do not have to face consequences. The strategy of acting innocent can also delay accountability, which benefits the person using it. By masking their guilt, they buy time to manipulate the situation, gather allies, or even repeat the harmful behavior without interruption. Meanwhile, the emotional burden falls on those who were affected, leaving them to process the pain while the offender avoids it entirely. Recognizing this dynamic is essential to protecting yourself and setting clear boundaries. You cannot force someone to own their actions, but you can control how much space they occupy in your emotional life. Understanding this behavior also helps you cultivate emotional clarity. Instead of being distracted or manipulated by their performance of innocence, you can focus on the facts: what happened, how it made you feel, and what you need to protect yourself. You do not need validation from someone who refuses to acknowledge their own mistakes. Their act of innocence does not erase the truth of your experience, and it does not diminish the validity of your emotions. By recognizing that their innocence is a tactic rather than an admission of truth, you gain power. You can respond with boundaries rather than confusion, with clarity rather than doubt, and with self-respect rather than apology. You stop internalizing their behavior and start reclaiming control over your emotional space. You begin to see that the mask they wear does not define reality, and their refusal to be accountable does not diminish your worth. Their behavior may make you question yourself, but your feelings are valid. When someone hurts you and then acts innocent, it is natural to feel confused, uncertain, and even guilty. You may replay the events in your mind, searching for clues that you overreacted, that maybe you misunderstood, or that perhaps you are too sensitive. This is one of the most insidious aspects of being hurt by someone who refuses to take responsibility. Their actions force you to doubt your own reality. But the truth is, your emotions are not just valid, they are essential. They are signals, guiding you to understand your own boundaries and the impact that others' behavior has on your life. Self-doubt is often the first reaction in these situations. When someone who has caused you pain insists on acting innocent, it triggers your internal questioning. You might wonder, am I making a big deal out of nothing? Did I misinterpret their words? Is the problem really me? These thoughts can spiral, leaving you anxious, frustrated, and insecure. Yet, it is crucial to remember that the root of the confusion is not within you. It is in their behavior. Their ability to manipulate perception is designed to create doubt, but your feelings are real, grounded in the truth of your experience, and worthy of acknowledgement. Acknowledging the validity of your emotions is the first step toward reclaiming your power. When you accept that being hurt is normal, natural, and justified, you no longer give the other person control over your internal world. You stop questioning your instincts and start trusting your judgment. The hurt you feel is not a weakness. It is a response to someone violating your boundaries, betraying your trust, or disregarding your dignity. It is a sign that your emotional intelligence is functioning correctly, alerting you to danger, inconsistency, or disrespect. Another important aspect is understanding the difference between feeling hurt and overreacting. Overreacting implies that your response is disproportionate or unjustified, but when your feelings are rooted in real experiences of betrayal, manipulation, or disrespect, they are not overreactions. They are accurate reflections of reality. By validating your feelings, you affirm your right to emotional honesty and reject the subtle pressure from those who would have you apologize for being affected by their actions. Feeling hurt also teaches resilience. Each time you acknowledge your emotions and navigate the confusion caused by someone else's feigned innocence, you strengthen your ability to respond thoughtfully rather than react impulsively. You learn to set boundaries without guilt, to protect your energy without apology, and to maintain your clarity in the face of manipulation. Your emotions become tools for self-awareness, guiding you toward healthier relationships and more authentic interactions. It is equally important to understand that your feelings exist independently of their behavior. The fact that someone refuses to acknowledge their actions or attempts to shift blame does not negate the reality of your experience. Your hurt, your disappointment, your anger, they are yours, and they are valid regardless of how they act. Accepting this allows you to stop seeking external validation from people who are unwilling or incapable of providing it. You no longer wait for apologies that may never come or explanations that are never offered. Recognizing the validity of your feelings also encourages self-compassion. When you are hurt, it is natural to feel vulnerable or frustrated, but embracing your emotions with kindness rather than judgment allows you to process pain without shame. You begin to see that your response is a natural human reaction, not a flaw. The hurt is not a weakness, and feeling it does not make you less capable of moving forward. Instead, it makes you more attuned to your needs and more determined to protect your peace. When you internalize this understanding, the power dynamic shifts. You stop giving away your energy to someone who manipulates perception and avoids accountability. You no longer let their innocence confuse you or dictate your self-worth. Instead, you trust yourself, honor your emotions, and navigate the world with clarity. You validate your own experience, and that is a profound form of liberation. You cannot change or fix them, only protect your own peace. One of the hardest truths to accept in life is that no matter how much you care about someone, no matter how much effort you put into understanding them, or how many ways you try to guide them, you cannot control their behavior. People who hurt you and then act innocent are often locked into patterns that are beyond your ability to alter. They may have emotional wounds, insecurities, or habits of avoidance that are entirely their responsibility to face. Trying to fix them to force accountability, or to change the narrative in your favor is a futile endeavor. The only thing you truly have control over is yourself, your reactions, your boundaries, and your peace of mind. Accepting this reality is liberating, though it may feel uncomfortable at first. The desire to change someone who has caused pain comes from a natural instinct to restore balance, to correct the wrong, or to reclaim justice. But attempting to do so often leads to frustration and further hurt, because the other person may be unwilling, incapable, or simply uninterested in change. When you understand that their behavior is beyond your control, you stop investing energy into something that cannot yield results. You no longer wait for apologies, explanations, or recognition that may never come. Instead, you focus on what you can influence: your own well-being, your choices, and your emotional responses. Protecting your peace requires setting clear boundaries. Boundaries are not punishments or ultimatums. They are declarations of self-respect. They communicate what you will and will not tolerate, and they allow you to interact with others without losing your sense of self. When someone consistently hurts you and then acts innocent, boundaries act as a shield. They prevent you from being manipulated, gaslit, or drawn into unnecessary conflict. Boundaries might mean limiting contact, disengaging from certain conversations, or removing yourself from situations that compromise your emotional stability. The goal is not to control the other person, but to safeguard your own energy. Another aspect of protecting your peace is detachment. Detachment does not mean indifference or lack of care. It means recognizing that the other person's choices and actions are their responsibility, not yours. It means observing without taking on their emotional baggage, without letting their feigned innocence dictate your mood or self-worth. When you detach, you create space between their chaos and your calm, allowing you to respond thoughtfully rather than react impulsively. This emotional distance is a form of empowerment because it allows you to maintain clarity, focus, and composure even in difficult situations. Self-awareness is also crucial in this process. Understanding your triggers, your vulnerabilities, and your emotional limits equips you to protect yourself effectively. When you know what situations or behaviors affect you deeply, you can proactively set measures to minimize harm. This might include being selective about who you trust, refusing to justify or explain yourself unnecessarily, and recognizing manipulative patterns early. Self-awareness transforms reactive pain into proactive protection, giving you the tools to navigate relationships without being swept away by the other person's tactics. Protecting your peace also involves cultivating your inner strength. The more confident and secure you are in yourself, the less influence someone else's actions can have over you. Practices like reflection, meditation, journaling, or simply spending time in solitude can fortify your emotional resilience. The stronger your foundation, the less likely you are to be shaken by someone's attempts to deflect responsibility or manipulate perception. You learn to trust your instincts, honor your feelings, and maintain equilibrium even when others around you act in harmful or confusing ways. Ultimately, the key is to accept that you are not responsible for their growth, their choices, or their accountability. You can offer compassion, understanding, or support if you choose, but you cannot make someone confront their flaws or take responsibility for their actions. Attempting to do so only drains your energy and compromises your well-being. The power lies in your ability to prioritize yourself, to honor your emotions, and to protect your peace above all else. Boundaries and self-respect are your tools against their manipulation. When someone hurts you and then acts innocent, it can feel disorienting and destabilizing. Their behavior challenges your perception of reality, your sense of trust, and sometimes even your confidence in your own judgment. In such situations, boundaries and self-respect are not just helpful, they are essential. They act as a framework for navigating relationships, protecting your energy, and ensuring that you are not swept into cycles of pain and confusion that do not belong to you. Without these tools, it is easy to become entangled in someone else's chaos, allowing their actions to dictate your emotions and disrupt your peace. Boundaries are the invisible lines you draw to protect yourself. They define what behavior you will accept, what treatment you consider harmful, and how much access someone has to your emotional world. Boundaries can be physical, emotional, or even digital, depending on the context of your relationships. For example, you may choose to limit conversations with someone who repeatedly hurts you, or you may refuse to engage in arguments that leave you emotionally drained. Setting boundaries is not about punishing the other person. It is about affirming your own worth and protecting your mental and emotional space. Self-respect complements boundaries. When you respect yourself, you recognize your value and refuse to compromise your dignity for the sake of someone else's comfort. Self-respect allows you to see clearly when someone is being manipulative, deceptive, or evasive, and it gives you the strength to respond in ways that prioritize your well-being rather than reacting out of anger, guilt, or fear. Without self-respect, it is easy to excuse harmful behavior, rationalize manipulations, or minimize the impact of actions that hurt you. With self-respect, you hold firm to your principles and refuse to tolerate mistreatment, regardless of how convincing someone's act of innocence may appear. Boundaries and self-respect also work together to create emotional resilience. When you establish clear limits and honor your own value, you are less likely to be swayed by someone's attempts to manipulate perception or induce guilt. You learn to recognize tactics like gaslighting, denial, or feigned innocence for what they are, and you respond not with confusion or self-blame, but with clarity and calm. This resilience allows you to maintain your peace even when the other person refuses to take responsibility for their actions. Furthermore, these tools teach you how to manage relationships proactively rather than reactively. Instead of being caught off guard by hurtful behavior, you approach interactions with awareness and intentionality. You decide in advance what is acceptable and what is not, which reduces the emotional impact of manipulation and increases your control over your own responses. Boundaries and self-respect create a protective structure, ensuring that your emotional well-being is prioritized even when someone else's actions are unpredictable or harmful. Using these tools also reinforces your autonomy. You no longer rely on the other person's acknowledgement or validation to define your self-worth. Their inability to admit wrongdoing or act responsibly does not diminish your value. By upholding boundaries and practicing self-respect, you signal to yourself and others that your feelings, time, and energy are valuable and non-negotiable. This awareness discourages manipulation because it makes it clear that attempts to deceive, guilt, or control you will not succeed. Finally, boundaries and self-respect foster empowerment. When you implement these tools consistently, you shift the balance of power back to yourself. You are no longer at the mercy of someone else's actions, moods, or strategies. Instead, you operate from a place of self-assurance and clarity, responding to situations with intention rather than reaction. You learn to protect your inner peace while maintaining compassion and understanding, realizing that you can control only your actions, your mindset, and your choices. These tools are not merely defensive. They are a declaration of your strength, independence, and commitment to living with integrity and dignity. Their innocence is a mask. Your strength and clarity are real. When someone hurts you and then acts as if nothing happened, it can be tempting to question your perception, your judgment, or even your own reality. The mask of innocence is a carefully constructed facade. It is a tool designed to manipulate perception, deflect blame, and protect the person wearing it from facing the consequences of their actions. While it may appear convincing on the surface, it is never an accurate reflection of their intentions or the truth of what occurred. Understanding this allows you to see through the illusion, to distinguish between appearances and reality, and to reclaim your sense of power in a situation where you might otherwise feel powerless. This mask of innocence serves multiple purposes. Primarily, it shields them from accountability. By appearing blameless, they can avoid admitting fault, avoid apologies, and avoid the discomfort of self-reflection. It also allows them to manipulate others into feeling confused or guilty, creating doubt about your own reactions and perceptions. Their innocence is a form of control. It keeps you questioning, it keeps you second-guessing, and it keeps the focus off their actions. Recognizing this tactic is crucial because it shifts the power back to you. Once you see through the mask, you are no longer subject to manipulation. You are aware of the truth and can act accordingly. Your strength lies in your ability to maintain clarity despite the deception. Strength is not about confrontation or retaliation. It is about understanding, observation, and self-possession. You can acknowledge the hurt, recognize the manipulation, and choose how to respond without being drawn into their game. Your clarity allows you to separate your emotional reality from their performance. You know what happened. You understand the impact it had on you, and you refuse to let someone else rewrite the narrative. While they rely on illusion to protect themselves, you rely on truth and awareness to protect your peace. Clarity is reinforced by self-trust. When someone's actions hurt you and their behavior confuses you, it is easy to start doubting yourself. You may wonder if you overreacted, if you misread the situation, or if your expectations were unreasonable. But your feelings are valid, and your perception is accurate. Trusting yourself means affirming your reality, validating your emotions, and recognizing that the responsibility for their actions and their mask of innocence rests entirely with them. It is not your duty to excuse, justify, or repair their behavior. It is your right to preserve your integrity and your well-being. Seeing through their innocence also empowers you to act decisively. When you recognize that the mask is a defense mechanism, you can set boundaries, enforce limits, and protect yourself without hesitation. You do not have to wait for acknowledgement, apology, or recognition. Your peace does not depend on their willingness to take responsibility. By maintaining strength and clarity, you operate from a position of awareness, making choices that honor your needs and safeguard your energy. Another aspect of this realization is emotional liberation. When you stop being swayed by their performance, you release the burden of managing their image or trying to interpret their intentions. You no longer expend energy trying to convince them of the truth or hoping that they will act differently. Their innocence is theirs to carry. Your clarity is yours to embrace. Recognizing this allows you to focus on what matters most: your growth, your boundaries, and your emotional well-being. Ultimately, the contrast between their mask and your reality highlights the power of authenticity. While they hide behind a facade, you operate with honesty and awareness. Your strength is not contingent on their acknowledgement, nor is your clarity dependent on their behavior. In a world where appearances can deceive, your internal compass, self-respect, and commitment to truth are invaluable. You learn to navigate relationships with discernment, responding thoughtfully and maintaining composure even in the face of manipulation. In the end, the people who hurt you and act innocent after are not reflections of your worth. They are mirrors of their own struggles, fears, and limitations. Their actions, their excuses, their masks, none of it defines you. What defines you is your strength, your clarity, your ability to honor your feelings, set boundaries, and protect your peace. You cannot change them, and you should not carry the weight of their accountability. But you can control how you respond, how you move forward, and how you safeguard your own soul. Your feelings are real, your boundaries are valid, and your self-respect is non-negotiable. Let them act innocent. Let them pretend. Their performance cannot touch the truth of your experience, nor can it diminish the power you hold within yourself. Every hurt you have faced, every boundary you have set, And every moment of clarity you have claimed strengthens you, shapes you, and prepares you to live life on your terms. Remember, the mask of innocence will always fade in the light of your awareness. The chaos they try to impose cannot reach the calm you cultivate. And while they may hide behind deception, your strength is real, your clarity is unwavering, and your peace is yours to keep. Hold it, protect it, own it. Because no one can take from you what you refuse to surrender,